Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Penna Dexter.
Thank you very much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen, for Point of View. I'm so glad you're with me today. During this first hour of the program, Jonathan Saenz, as he normally does once a week, will join us to talk about what's happening in the state of Texas. Of course, the legislature is meeting, and it's if you're not in Texas and listening, it's still instructive, because right now Texas is working very hard to shore up against efforts to make it purple rather than red. And in many ways, we are battling for religious liberty here in this state, trying to be protective and proactive to some degree. And there's one bill in particular that we will talk about with him that took some, actually advanced in the Senate last week. The Texas Professional Protection Act really protects the rights of employees. And, you know, when you think about persecution, religious persecution, some people say to me, well, we aren't persecuted as Christians here in this country as others are overseas in other countries. I mean, think of the Sudan, think of Nigeria right now, and China and Vietnam and North Korea. But it's different here. The persecution comes in the ability to live your life according to your faith. And when it comes to your employment, that is very, very serious. And so that's what Texas is looking at addressing. We'll talk about that with Jonathan Saenz a little bit later. And in the second hour, Mandy Arioto is going to join me, and I think you will enjoy this. She is CEO and president of MOPS International, Mothers of Preschoolers. Many of you are familiar with that organization. And she's written a book called Have More Fun: How to Be Remarkable, Stop Feeling Stuck, and Start Enjoying Life. And certainly at MOPS, if any of you have ever participated in it, they help moms with various topics with regard to raising their preschoolers. And all of my kids, all of my daughter and my two daughters-in-law have been in MOPS. And it's really helpful. And Mandy speaks across the country. And one of the ways of being a great parent is to be a fun parent and to make things fun. You don't always want to be heavy-handed and a staunch, strict disciplinarian. That has to go along with some fun. So we will talk with Mandy about that. You won't want to miss it. And I guess the big news today, of course, is that the Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is out. She has resigned. She resigned on Sunday. And, this has been coming. She's been in that post since 2017. She replaced John Kelly, General Kelly, when he became chief of staff for President Trump. And when he left that position, it looked like Kirstjen Nielsen's days were numbered. And with the problems at the border right now, really the crisis, the president has been critical of her. And, the jury's out whether she did the best she could. We'll find out because now there's going to be a new acting secretary, whom I will talk about later. And then they will have to confirm a secretary of Homeland Security. It's funny to think about it. 20 years ago, we didn't even have that department. We didn't even have that cabinet post. 9/11 changed all that. But Nielsen's out. She's 47. She had repeated run-ins, says the Wall Street Journal, with the White House during her tenure. And Mr. Trump's recent threats to close the southern border have spurred warnings from her department that such a move could have a serious economic impact on the U.S. And he has pulled back a bit on that, although I think the possibility of using that strategy is being held out there as a threat, but he won't do it right away. There are other things they plan on doing, and I think he part of this. Of course, she resigned, but she was probably forced out, and it has to do with how tough he wants to get on the border right now, and it really is an emergency. Mr. Trump has appointed as her replacement, at least her acting replacement, Mr. McLeenan, Kevin McLeenan is taking over at DHS, and right now he's got a tough job in really in our government. Even before he takes up this job, he's the Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and he is a natural leader, really, of DHS. I mean, in a sense, if he does a good job, perhaps he will be actually nominated as that. But he's a lawyer. He's got degrees from the University of Chicago and also Amherst College. And he, according to observers, he pores over academic reports on migration trends. He speaks of international aid as being vitally important to stemming the northward flow of refugees from Central America. And this is one of the differences he has with President Trump, because President Trump doesn't want to increase our aid to any country, and he has to really be convinced to do so. But he believes, Mr. McLeenan believes in providing aid to Central American countries as part of the solution to illegal immigration. McLeenan it was actually started in government through President Obama. He's kind of appeals to both parties. He remains in good standing with lawmakers for both parties. And he's someone, and this is according to the Washington Post, he's someone who knows the nation's immigration quandary, and he spans a generation of Republicans and Democrats who have looked at this problem and said there are no easy fixes. And the question is, can he be tough? Because that's what President Trump wants. He wants a tough Secretary of Homeland Security. He wants to shut down the border if necessary. Can he do that? Can he demonstrate progress on this particular metric, which President Trump, it was really at the center of his campaign. He cares about stemming the tide of illegal immigration more than any other issue, and many of his supporters do too. And so he wants to reduce the number of Central Americans arriving each month. 100,000 arrived from Central America last month, and that was in March. And that's the highest monthly total in more than a decade. U.S. border agents and infrastructure, they say they've hit a breaking point. This is what Mr. Kevin McLeenan steps into as he takes over. Kirsten Nielsen will officially step down on Wednesday, and he will take the reins. He refers to the migrants arriving at the border not as scammers looking to cheat their way into the country, says the Washington Post, but as vulnerable families who need more humanitarian treatment. He wants to change the system, and I think this is right. He wants a fast screening process. He wants to let the asylum seekers stay incarcerated and make it short and be disposed of quickly, whether they're going to get asylum or whether they're not, and be sent back instead of all these years of waiting where they get lost in the system. He was raised in Los Angeles, and he was director for Border Patrol for L.A. Airport. And then he ascended through the ranks of leadership under President Obama. He's been praised by Democrats and Republicans. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to talk about illegal immigration. Certainly take your calls if you would like to join us, 800-351-1212. I do want to mention that last week, certainly our big push, we talked about the subject of socialism. That is really becoming a hot topic in our country, and we have to deal with it and help listeners understand what it really is. It's not as cool as AOC thinks it is, or others who are pushing this, Bernie Sanders. And so it's something that we need to educate you about. And with regard to that, we want you to help and be part of that through our Truth Team. So you'll hear more about that next.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
The former Attorney General Eric Holder started a conversation the other day on MSNBC when he was asked about President Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again." Holder responded with this question: exactly when do you think America was great? The implication was America has never been great in the past. Vice President Mike Pence decided to respond to the question by Eric Holder with 4 iconic pictures on Twitter. They were pictures of Washington crossing the Delaware River, Americans raising the American flag over Iwo Jima, Buzz Aldrin posing with the American flag on the moon, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. giving his famous speech in Washington. You might think that would have ended the discussion. Actually, it started another one about American history from a leftist perspective. Consider one of the many Twitter responses. When Washington crossed the Delaware, there was slavery. When the flag was raised at Iwo Jima, Japanese Americans were in internment camps. When King marched on Washington, black people could not vote. And when we landed on the moon, millions were dying in Vietnam. Perhaps this one response can help you see the leftist perspective on American history. No matter what good is done in the country, it is never enough. All of those statements are true, but does that invalidate the sacrifice and innovation that has made some of these iconic pictures so meaningful? One more point is worthy of mention. Few want to mention the political affiliation of those behind such evil. It was Democrats who put Japanese Americans in internment camps, prevented African Americans from voting, and who expanded the Vietnam War. The vice president tried to provide us with a history lesson and instead gave us an insight into the mindset of the left in America. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
From 20th Century Fox and Franklin Entertainment, Breakthrough, starring Chrissy Metz, based on a true story. Breakthrough, rated PG, in theaters Wednesday, April 17th. Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Hello, I'm Chuck Bentley, CEO of Crown Financial Ministries. I so appreciate the great work of Kirby Anderson and the Point of View team. Every day they step into the public arena to make a stand for truth by shedding biblical light on the issues that confront us all. Never backing away or compromising on the truth, they're making a difference for you, for me, and the next generation. It's important that we Christians put our money behind those causes that are having a meaningful impact. My wife and I personally support Point of View, and we encourage you to do the same.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Well, it's nice to hear from Chuck Bentley, CEO or president, leader of Crown Financial Ministries, out there helping families. And we are going to spend the bulk of the program today talking about families, moms. Next hour, for a full hour, Mandy Arioto will join me. She's CEO and president of Moms in Touch. If you have kids, especially, I'm not Moms in Touch, mothers of preschoolers, and MOPS. And these are a couple of great organizations, but MOPS, I think, is just awesome because they help young mothers. And, you know, when you think about it, if you're a grandparent, it's a long time ago. For me, I'm looking back and remembering what it felt like to be a mom and not know how to deal with a lot of the issues that preschoolers present to you. And so Mandy will join me, and we're going to talk about her latest book, which is How to Have More Fun. That's really how to influence a lot of people, especially your own kids, and make it fun. So that ought to be a fun interview. We hope that you will join us for that, and we'll certainly be taking calls and asking for your thoughts on the issue, too. So stay with us. And I just do want to remind you that we are still very much emphasizing joining our truth team here at Point of View. And it's important because, of course, it takes money. We do a lot with what we get, but it takes money to run this program every day to make sure everything works and that we are broadcasting across the nation to the various stations and that our website is up to snuff and that our programs go off without a hitch and all of that. And so it's easy to join the Truth Team if you haven't joined. It's easy to increase your participation in the Truth Team by going to pointofview.net, and you can find out how to do it there right on the website. Or you can give us a call at 800-347-5151. And I don't know where we are as, with regard to meeting the goals that we had last week, but I do know that we just want to continue that opportunity for you to be part of the team. You know, a lot of people say, I want to help. I want to help change the culture, but I don't know how to do it. Or my situation in life is not where I can do that. And that's what Point of View is all about. You can learn by listening. You can learn by going to our website and reading the things that we provide. And we've even got a Take Action section that you can contact your legislator on various issues that we point out to you. So all of that is available to you, and you can certainly turn other people on to Point of View because a lot of people need to be hearing some of these things. Well, I do want to mention we were talking about immigration, and Beto O'Rourke, he's out on the presidential campaign trail, of course, and if you don't know, he used to be a congressman from Texas. Then he ran for Senate and lost to Ted Cruz. But in his most recent presidential campaign rally, he vowed, and this is his solution for illegal immigration, he says just give all 11 million, it may be 22 million, all of the illegals in the country, give them amnesty and give them citizenship. And, of course, then they'll all be able to vote, and we'll never elect a conservative again, at least until some of them become conservatives. But it takes a while because a lot of times when these folks get into the country, they're needy. They need our welfare system. They need our benefits. They need lots of things. And so they cost the country money, and sometimes they start businesses and later on they contribute more financially. But at this point, they cost. And since they need those benefits and Democrats support those, they vote Democrat. So that's one of the reasons why everybody's saying give them amnesty, bring them in, let them cross the border freely. But Beto O'Rourke says give them amnesty, and specifically he says he wants to make these people citizens, and he wants the angel families who have lost loved ones to feel safer. And so if we let everybody be legal, he feels that they will be safer and everybody will be safer. And he was asked about the thousands of angel families who've lost children, grandparents, relatives, and friends to crimes committed by illegal aliens. The situation is not very safe right now. But he said he would only deport illegal aliens after they have committed a crime against American citizen. For some people, of course, many of those angel families, that is way, 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 way too late. I do want to mention, and this comes from Matt McCobiac, who is with the Potomac, Strategy Group, which is actually in Austin, Texas, but it's a national strategy group. And he says the most sober assessment of the situation at the border improbably came from former Obama administration Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnston. Remember that name? He said, by any measure, 4,000 apprehensions on our southern border in one day, 100,000 in a month. That's what we have right now. Is a crisis. It's a crisis in Central America, where the poverty imbalance is occurring, that causes people to flee. It's also a crisis in that it overwhelms our border security personnel to deal with that volume of people coming in. It's also a crisis in the communities on the border that have to absorb these populations. So what do we do? Well, one thing President Trump did, as we mentioned in the last segment, is he pretty much fired Kirstjen Nielsen, Homeland Security Secretary, and now his acting secretary, Kevin McAleenan, is going to take over at Department of Homeland Security. Will he be tough enough for President Trump? That's the question on the table. The Washington Post asked it today, and they tried to answer it in a lengthy article. And he's well respected, and on both sides of the aisle, he is head of Border Patrol and U.S. Customs right now. So he's the guy. He'll be in there, and we will see what President Trump does with regard to that. Beto O'Rourke again calling for removing the border barrier, not only legalizing the illegals who are in the country, but removing the border barrier. And another person calling for that is another presidential candidate. He is the San Antonio former mayor and also a former Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Julian Castro. He doesn't think there's a crisis at the border at all. And he says he wants to decriminalize illegal entry into the country. But really, ladies and gentlemen, it's past time for the U.S. to assume operational control of our southern border. Not only do we have just a problem with everyone coming in, there's human trafficking, which is rampant, and certainly the drug cartels can control much of that territory. So something has to be done. And this president's trying to do it, and he's not getting much help from either the Congress or the other party. So it's pretty tough. Well, one other question I think I'm going to ask Jonathan Saenz when he joins me in just a few minutes is about the fact that our federal government, our Justice Department, has now said that they will not defend Obamacare. There's been a lawsuit. It started in Texas, but 20 states sued to strike down Obamacare based on the fact that the individual mandate is basically gone. And so is Trump right to decline? Is Trump and the U.S. Justice Department correct and right to decline to defend Obamacare? You can answer that question, too, if you want to give me a call, 800-351-1212. I am going to ask it of Jonathan Saenz. And then there's another issue out there, folks, and some people I know are listening from Minnesota. Lawmakers there are trying to smuggle in a measure that would subvert the Electoral College. That hasn't happened in Texas. But again, there's so many efforts to turn this country purple, or this state purple, that it could be a threat. So we can discuss that a little bit later in the program. I'll probably ask Jonathan about that, too. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to a break, again, I want to mention that if you somehow missed or weren't listening last week or just didn't get a chance to join our Truth Team, you can do it now. In fact, we would love to have you do it. And I think the news that's swirling around us really shows us that it's necessary to have outlets that tell you the truth and that back it up with conservative, traditional, and biblical values. So if you want to keep the point of view healthy financially, help us. Be part of our Truth Team. You can do it by going to pointofview.net. You can join or you can increase your participation or give us a call, 800-351-1212. Jonathan Saenz from Texas Value will be my guest next segment. Stay with us for more of Point of View.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. Our nation needs a truth team very badly. Support Point of View Radio today at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. Pointofview.net or call 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221, Box 30, Dallas 75221. Point of View will continue after this.
are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again, is Penna Dexter.
We're glad you're with us today, and I'm so glad that our next guest is with us because he's been very busy and active in our state capitol and here in Texas. He is Jonathan Saenz, Esquire. He's the president of Texas Values, which, as most of you know, it's a nonprofit group dedicated to preserving and advancing a culture of family values in the state of Texas. Jonathan, thanks for joining me.
It's great to be with you.
Where are you? It sounds like it's a busy place.
It is. I'm sorry. I am right outside a hearing room at the state capitol. I'm waiting to testify on a piece of legislation, so I hope.
That's fine. That's great. We love being where the action is.
So,
what are you going to be testifying on?
Well, let me just update y'all real quick.
Yes, we want an update.
Yeah, no, look, there's movement on two important matters, on religious liberty and on life. So Senate Bill 17, the Texas Professional Protection Act, it makes it clear that if you have to hold a license or get a certificate or anything official the state requires you to do to work in Texas, people can't try to have the government punish you on that issue for your religious beliefs. So they can't pressure the government to try to withhold your license or your certificate or threaten your livelihood. And so that's happened in other issues across the country where people are just simply wanting to work and wanting to practice their faith. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with anything they do at work. They get targeted for something they do on their own personal, private time. And because of the climate we live in these days, people want to make it difficult for people to earn a living. They want them to go out of business if they don't agree with them on certain religious liberties, issues of sexuality, marriage. We've seen those issues come up. But Senate Bill 17 puts a defense in place. So if somebody tries to have the government punish you on one of these issues, you have a defense and you can defend yourself, and it's very clear the law applies as far as the First Amendment and these type of issues. That's moving over to the House. It's now been referred to the State Affairs Committee. That's chaired by Dave Phelan. And we expect that we'll see movement on the House side on that issue soon. And also we're expecting a vote on a bill on the House, House Bill 1929 by Candy Noble sometime soon, probably this week, that makes it clear that local governments cannot use your tax dollars, or they can't engage in contracts that are sweetheart special deals with abortion providers like Planned Parenthood. The city of Austin's tried to do that. They gave them rent in a building for $1 a year for 20 years as a way to give them a discount, even though it's a government building, and anybody else that rented it, it would cost them thousands, if not millions of dollars over 20 years. So there's movement on those issues. But I'm testifying against House Bill 978. This bill is a very liberal issue, a very aggressive issue, really an anti-family issue, traditional values issue, and it's sponsored by Representative Beckley, a new member of the Texas House. And the bill would remove references to mother and father, so you'd no longer be able to call yourself mother or father when you on state documents. It removes the reference to a pregnant person in state law as a woman.
You're kidding.
No, I mean, it removes that. Now it just says you could refer to them as a spouse. So it could be someone who's male or female, arguably, and we no longer have that reference as a pregnant woman to be female. And so just a couple of things. I mean, there are other problems with the bill. House Bill 978, we're getting ready to testify against.
Wow, Jonathan. Well, I'm glad that you're testifying against it and that you're the one doing it. Because, I think what I see here is because we've had sort of a shrinkage on the Republican side, yet we still have a lot of really strong conservatives in the Texas House, and of course the Senate's conservative. But we see sort of this proactive thing going on because you also have the left being very bold in Texas, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more activities on these issues on sexuality and really trying to rewrite state law in a lot of areas and cause confusion. And a lot of these things are political and personal views that people have, but they want to force them onto our state law. And, they take away other people's rights. And so I mentioned it here. This is on page 6 of this bill, section 107, where it talks about the court shall consider facts concerning the welfare of the parties. This is relating into family law matters, the welfare of the parties to the marriage, including whether, and it says now whether the female is pregnant. And it puts a line through female and says, including whether a spouse is pregnant. And it leads you only to believe, I guess you could be something other than female and be pregnant, and this just goes against biology.
Well, you could be a transgender man. You could be a transgender man and be pregnant, right? So is that where they're coming from?
Part of the argument here. Yeah, I do think that's part of the argument is people, they want to redefine what things stay in our state law on these issues. Now, look, I disagree with what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on the issue of marriage, but this bill goes way beyond marriage. When we start redefining a pregnant woman as something other than female, it's going down a very dangerous track, and that's House Bill 978 by Representative Beckley. I think she is from the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Oh, great. Just the things you have to watch out for down there, Jonathan, are absolutely amazing. I will mention, ladies and gentlemen, we put an article up at pointofview.net. It's from the Texas Tribune talking about the first bill we discussed, which is the Professional Protection Bill, the Texas Professionals Protection Act. And I just want to go back to that a little bit, Jonathan, because, it's proactive, because we've seen other things go on where elected officials, people that work for the state, and even private enterprise having their ability to earn their living removed simply because in some part of their life they have said something that supports marriage between a man and a woman, or they somehow hold to religious, conservative, traditional views on things. And even if their job has nothing to do with that, even if that doesn't really influence their job, they're losing jobs. And here in Texas, I haven't really heard those stories. Maybe there are some, but this is protective in Texas, and it's necessary, isn't it?
That's right. No, that's right. We actually did have some people that live here in Texas, 4 people that testified, 2 lawyers, someone, a Christian counselor, and also someone who is a hairstylist, a beautician. And they talked about how they've reached a point where they need to have specific protection in state law because people are trying to create doubt and confusion about whether or not the First Amendment now applies on certain issues, particularly related to people's views on sexuality and marriage and a variety of things. And so we also see this in the context of a doctor. We don't want the doctor being forced by the government to perform an abortion when that violates his or her conscience. The government should not be doing that, and you shouldn't have your license threatened or people suggest put pressure on the government to prevent you from working in that field. And we see that climate. I mean, I hear college students and young people that are about to enter college describe an environment in academia these days where it feels very hostile to their beliefs, and it's being suggested that maybe they should not be in these fields of work if they have certain religious beliefs. You shouldn't have to choose between your faith and your work, and particularly when the government's involved. The government should be staying neutral at best on these issues. As a matter of fact, when this issue was voted on the Senate floor, it was bipartisan. Senate Bill 17 got bipartisan support, and over almost a two-thirds majority of the Senate supported the bill. But there was one particular state senator, Royce West, who made comments against the bill that suggested, in his words, maybe these people should find a different area of work if they feel like they have there's an issue of conscience. And so, but it's not just about work. The bill also is about if you have membership in a religious organization. We've seen people that are involved in certain entities, organizations. So there's a judge that's been nominated to the federal bench. He is a member of the Knights of Columbus, which is a Catholic men's service organization that has over 2 million members. But yes,
it's been called extremist by a couple of presidential candidates.
That's right. That's right. And so it's the argument has been he's not fit to be a judge because he's a membership in this organization, and that's absurd. They've provided $75 million of service, and their view is that marriage between a man and a woman, but that shouldn't impact his ability to work.
No, it shouldn't. So what do you expect to see in the House? Do you expect it to be, I know it won't be, nothing is as easy in the House right now in Texas as it is in the Senate if it's a conservative issue. But what do you expect there? Because just makes a lot of common sense.
Well, there are a few more, there's at least one more step in the House, and you obviously have more members in the House. And so to some extent that can have an impact on navigating the legislative process. But look, if you look, the House Speaker is a conservative, pro-life, family values Republican. A lot of the chairs of committees are, a lot of the folks that are in leadership, if you will. And so the expectation is the issues of life and religious liberty are going to move in the House as well. And they've taken up a lot of other issues, the budget, education funding, and school teacher funding, all those things. And so there's plenty of time to continue to get things done. If people go to txvaluesaction.org, they can find out how to get involved. We had almost 100,000 emails through our system during this legislative session. It's been unbelievable.
Wow.
It's been unmatched. But I want to say one last thing, too, as it relates to, the issue with Chick-fil-A being targeted.
I've only got 20 seconds, Jonathan. I hope you can stick with me, because I've got just a few seconds before the break. If you get called out, we'll understand to go testify, but we've got a break right now. So I want to talk about Chick-fil-A in San Antonio. We need to get Jonathan's comments on that. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us for more of Point of View. We'll be right back.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
The things that catch my attention are the abortion issue, and it's so important for people to understand the value of life. And to me, that is number one in our lives. And the shows that I've heard on that have impacted. It just gives me kind of a different venue to be able to explain things differently to people. And I have kept in touch with the ministry, and I do donate each month because I feel like it's an important way for people to understand the worldview and that Christ taught. And we have just tried very hard to instill that in our children. Thank you so much for your service, guys, because you do have one.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
We hope you will join this precious listener in joining our Truth Team and donating to Point of View, whatever you can. $30 a month gets us a lot, and it gets you some good benefits too. So please join us, and you can go to pointofview.net or give us a call at 800-351-1212. Well, a second airport has joined San Antonio in banning Chick-fil-A, saying that its values are hateful and divisive, and these hateful, divisive values are traditional Christian beliefs. And so, Jonathan, it's now Buffalo Airport has joined San Antonio. But our Attorney General here in Texas, Ken Paxton, actually sent a letter to San Antonio concerning Chick-fil-A. And, people on the right are getting involved here because they're excluding Chick-fil-A on really a flawed argument, aren't they, Jonathan?
Well, absolutely. And we have a weekly radio show, and I had the Attorney General on our radio show last week talking about this very issue. And it's great that he put a letter together, asked the Department of Transportation to get involved, because this is City of San Antonio government, but we're talking about the Federal Aviation Association as well, that administration that has some jurisdiction at the airport. And so there are rules in place that prevent discrimination in these type of government buildings, and they're very clear. And you hear the folks on one side talk about, they feel like they've been discriminated against, but religious freedom protection against discrimination has long since been in our federal laws, state laws, and local laws, while these other issues that folks on the other side bring up are not in our state statutes or our federal laws. And so you got great precedent there. But, look, there's a lot of chatter around the Capitol about this issue. There's a lot of support for the individual rights of private businesses like Chick-fil-A. They do everything they can to do business the right way, to treat people well. They've got very loyal employees and supporters and customers. Their stores gross more than any fast food store per store than any other fast food restaurant. I mean, it's remarkable. And so I imagine we're going to see some activity probably at the Capitol before too long on state legislators not waiting for the federal government to do something, but wanting to take care of business and look out for Chick-fil-A in our own state.
So in a sense, they're violating religious liberty, and they're going against federal and state law, correct?
Well, that's absolutely right. And it's unfortunate that, it seems like you need something specific done in order to enforce these laws that already exist. But, we've reached a place where people in society think, it's okay to target people that are religious if they have certain religious views, like issues of marriage or sexuality. And in Chick-fil-A's situation, this wasn't related to anything that happened in any of their stores. They gave a donation to the Salvation Army. That was one of the main reasons that this group was targeted. They also donated money to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so it is about their religion. I mean, I don't think it could be any question that they've been targeted by the government for their religious beliefs, had nothing to do with anything that happened in any of their restaurants or stores. And also, it's not good for San Antonio, because obviously Chick-fil-A is good for business. There is no question. And so we hear a lot folks try to make that business argument sometimes. It's actually the flip here. I mean, Chick-fil-A is good for business. And look, they deserve to have their religious freedom rights supported. And the fact that it's happening while we're in session here at the Texas Capitol, I wouldn't be surprised if you see legislators find a way to do something to stand up for Chick-fil-A and any nonprofit, and also, any Christian-based or any private business. The government should not be discriminating against you because of your religious beliefs.
So they have a foundation that has taken these actions with regard to Salvation Army and other groups and supported traditional values in certain way. In the past, I know the founders actually spoke about marriage at various events and things like that. But these recent donations by the foundation seem very innocuous. You don't hear that the Salvation Army is some right-wing conservative group. I mean, they basically deal with poverty.
Yeah, look, I mean, they serve the poor. They serve the homeless. They feed and shelter the homeless and poor people. I mean, it couldn't get any basic and loving, and so it's loving what Salvation Army is doing. It's not loving what the city of San Antonio is doing to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, it's pretty hateful. Wow, Jonathan, you're there in the thick of all of that. And, so many of, I think, the pieces of legislation are in a sense hateful. They try to brand people who think traditionally about marriage, about sexuality is hateful, but their tactics now are revealing, where the hate is really coming from.
Well, you make a good point, because our efforts are centered around and focused on not allowing the government to do things that violate your rights. I mean, that's what Senate Bill 17 is about. It's about making it clear that the government cannot punish you in relation to a license or certificate that you hold in order to do work because membership of an organization or because of a viewpoint that someone else has, and the government can't force you to do certain activities or engage in certain type of procedures that go against and violate your conscience. Somebody can't force you to do that and make you try to choose your license or ability to work. That's saying the government can't do this to you. And so a lot of the work we do is about showing people in the limitations of what the government can have. We don't want the government more involved in churches and in Christian businesses like Chick-fil-A. We want the government to allow freedom to reign, and that means people are going to disagree with our views. They're going to have freedom as well. And so what they do, they want the government to punish Chick-fil-A. They want the government to pick winners and losers and to do things for them that benefit their side. They want the government to pay for their abortions or for tax dollars to be used to pay for abortions. And so we're simply asking for the government to stay out of those things and to stay neutral, to let freedom thrive, let the people in the business market decide. And those are the type of things that we work on. But you sometimes have to have legislation as well to make it clear that there are limitations on what the government can do. And that's what we're doing.
Well, Jonathan, it's a full-time job to watch over those things. Talk about just here at the end of our time together, our session. It's every other year. It ends at the end of May unless you get a special session. And, in a sense, I mean, there's a lot of efforts this time to preserve freedom, and that's really a Texas value that's under attack, isn't it?
There's no question. And a lot of it's coming from local governments. I mean, there are a lot of cities, their population and their tax revenue has swelled or it's grown or they've done things in order to help that happen. And so they're engaging in a whole lot of power grab, and that's a concern. And so the check and balance on that is for the state government to put limitations in place and make it clear that there are protections for principles like religious liberty, and private businesses in these cities can't just do what they want and think that they're going to get away with it. And so, but you got to be here every day. I mean, our team is here every day during the 140-day session. You can go to our website, txvalues.org, to see all the issues we're covering, activities we're involved in. We've got a team of 10 people. And so, but that's our role. And everybody's got a role to play in making sure we protect the values and the freedoms protect us. But all this is going to be over in May. And so the time for people to take action, those emails, those social media posts, the calls, they all matter.
They matter. And Jonathan, thank you for sharing with us. Ladies and gentlemen, you can click through to Texas Values from Point of View or just go to Texas Values. You can stay involved and active by doing that. Thank you, Jonathan. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after this with Mandy Arioto from MOPS.
It wasn't long ago, it seemed, every official decision brought religious liberty and our ability to live as faithful Christians into question. Some of us wondered how long it would be before we were literally forced to choose between obeying God or men. That pressure seems to have subsided just a bit, and now is the time not to take a breath, but to work as hard as we can for the future of our nation. Thanks to you, Point of View is doing just that. And our special thanks to those who have become members of Truth Team 360. In football, 22 guys battle it out on the field while 40 or 60,000 watch in the stands and perhaps hundreds of thousands more watch on television. We need a special few to get out of the seats and into the game. Join today by calling 1-800-347-5151 and ask to join the Truth Team, or visit us online at pointofview.net/team. We really do need you. The nation needs you. 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net/team. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kirby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Penna Dexter.
Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you just love live radio? We're planning on talking about being a mom, being parents in today's culture, in today's society, and that is what we're going to do today on the program. For the most part, we did have a guest booked who I've been promoting. Her name is Mandy Arioto, and she wrote a book called Have More Fun, which I read yesterday. And it's really how to have more fun as a parent and help your children have fun and still be a great parent. And I think a lot of us would love to know the answer to that. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to give it to you without that guest, but I do want you to participate in the program today if you are parents, because we're going to talk about some of the practicalities of it. And, you know, the question that this guest, who I was going to have today, Mandy, was asking, and I think it's still a good question to ask, and that is, do our lives become more about checking things off a to-do list than enjoying our families? And even as a grandparent, sometimes I find that. I've got 5 grandchildren that are 3 and under, and they're all in my community and in my life. And, you know, so I get to participate in their care some, and sometimes it is about checking off things, making sure that you have the nap, that you have the right food, that you have, all the diapers ready in case you need them, all of that. So that's one of the things. How can we creatively think about things to do that are fun? And I'd love your ideas about that when we open up the phones a little bit later. And then here's another one, and this is a part of my personality. Is it a part of yours? Do you ever say, I'll focus on fun once my work is caught up, and it never happens? Well, that's true around my house again. Do we forget how to enjoy life, or maybe even feel a little guilty enjoying things when there are so many tasks piling up? Do we find ourselves saying no with kids more than saying yes? I do, because I'm so scared they're going to hurt themselves. So it's no, 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 no. How do we say yes more and still be a good parent or grandparent? And also, I don't want to get to the end of my life and look back and realize that the best thing about me, that I was really good at keeping up with email, that I got my little tasks done, but that's what people remember about me? No. So that's the book, Have More Fun. And in it, there's research that suggests that if we have more fun in life, we're also going to accomplish more. We're going to be healthier. We'll like ourselves better, and people will want to be our friend. So I'll bring that up a little bit later, and we will open up the phones. But there are a couple of other things with regard to kids that I want to bring up. And one of them I think I'll discuss now and warn you about. And also, we will discuss it with our guest in the second hour. Her name is Elizabeth Johnston, and you may have heard of her because she's called the activist mommy, and she's been pretty high profile in fighting for some of the things that threaten our children in the culture. She's the mom, a homeschooling mom of 10 kids in North Carolina, but she started this whole activist mommy movement, and she's got a book out that we are going to discuss here on the program. It's called Not on My Watch: How to Win the Fight for Family, Faith, and Freedom. And she's doing it from an activist point of view. And I think a lot of our listeners are activists and will love hearing from her. But this Friday, we've talked about this almost every year on Point of View. It's the Day of Silence. And it's, the question is it harmless for the kids, or is it actually harmful? And, this agenda, well, what it is It's a day of silence in sort of solidarity with the LGBTQ plus kids in the schools. And, you know, it's really pushing this agenda, which is being pushed on so many fronts, onto our kids. And it's very sad. And this piece that I got at Barbed Wire, which is a website that I like to go to every once in a while. One of their columnists, and I don't even know who the columnist was that wrote this one, but it says, students, listen up. Just days ago, Chicago, the third largest American city, elected its first lesbian, socialist, same-sex partnered black female mayor, Lori Lightfoot. And in her acceptance speech, she talked about children. She said, I think about the children, boys and girls, seeking leaders who look like them, like we have so many of them in the school. The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, another one, he's gaining prominence and raising money. He's running for president. He's also gay and married to his homosexual partner. And he's a candidate for president. So we've got all of this sort of legitimizing LGBT. And this Friday, again, the Day of Silence, it's a big day. This is in elementary, middle, and high schools. And it was launched years ago by GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. It promotes that lifestyle, LGBTQ, to our sons and daughters by calling for solidarity with them, with LGBTQ students in elementary schools, ladies and gentlemen, and middle and high schools. And so, you know, it asks for a day of silence. So I don't know what that means. Do you not speak up in class? Do you not speak when the teacher talks to you? Does the teacher get involved too and everybody's quiet? You just do your work quietly? But it's really diabolical, this initiative. It erodes and corrupts the innocence and morals of our children. At the same time where during the days when everybody's talking at the schools, you're getting propaganda with regard to this ideology in our schools. And so, you know, what do we do? What does a parent do? And we've discussed this other years here on Point of View. They're asked to be quiet in solidarity with this lifestyle. So does that mean, should you keep your kid home from school that day because of that? My kids, it started when my kids were still in high school. And they thought it was stupid, and they said most people thought it was stupid and didn't participate. But, you know, with the way things are now, there's a lot more top-down enforcement of the LGBTQ plus agenda. So I don't know if it's safe for your kids to not participate. Could they be penalized? Maybe you ought to keep them home. This article from Barbed Wire says, while you're checking, you may want to inquire if the library is allowing registered sex offenders to perform drag queen routines and readings for children. I wrote about that a couple of weeks ago in my commentary. Drag queens are reading at story hour time in libraries across the nation. That's the latest trend in diversity training in schools today. So this columnist at Barbed Wire recommends that you check in with your school and see if they're participating in the Day of Silence on Fridays. Then you can decide what you want to do, whether your children will go to school that day and whether they will participate. Perhaps some schools are ignoring it. I hope so, because it's just another way to promote this agenda and to make it seem normal or even immoral not to approve of this type of lifestyle. This columnist at Barbed Wire says we need to be on guard to those intentionally endorsing behavior that was once stigmatized and abnormal and bringing it to the normal level. He says parents in these challenging times must be part of God's special forces who are watchmen on the wall and give no ground to the people pushing this agenda. So that's happening this Friday, April 12th, in schools everywhere. Some people say it's a clever initiative. I say it's immoral and should be avoided at all costs. Stay with us. Oh, we'll take your calls, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a call. How do you bring fun into your parenting style?
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
The former Attorney General Eric Holder started a conversation the other day on MSNBC when he was asked about President Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again." Holder responded with this question: exactly when do you think America was great? The implication was America has never been great in the past. Vice President Mike Pence decided to respond to the question by Eric Holder with 4 iconic pictures on Twitter. They were pictures of Washington crossing the Delaware River, Americans raising the American flag over Iwo Jima, Buzz Aldrin posing with the American flag on the moon, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. giving his famous speech in Washington. You might think that would have ended the discussion. Actually, it started another one about American history from a leftist perspective. Consider one of the many Twitter responses. When Washington crossed the Delaware, there was slavery. When the flag was raised at Iwo Jima, Japanese Americans were in internment camps. When King marched on Washington, black people could not vote. And when we landed on the moon, millions were dying in Vietnam. Perhaps this one response can help you see the leftist perspective on American history. No matter what good is done in the country, it is never enough. All of those statements are true, but does that invalidate the sacrifice and innovation that has made some of these iconic pictures so meaningful? One more point is worthy of mention. Few want to mention the political affiliation of those behind such evil. It was Democrats who put Japanese Americans in internment camps, prevented African Americans from voting, and who expanded the Vietnam War. The vice president tried to provide us with a history lesson and instead gave us an insight into the mindset of the left in America. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
From 20th Century Fox and Franklin Entertainment, Breakthrough, starring Chrissy Metz, based on a true story. Breakthrough, rated PG, in theaters Wednesday, April 17th. Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Hi, I'm Dinesh D'Souza, and what can I say about Kirby Anderson? He is actually very unique in the world of radio. As an author, I love to be on the show. Why? Because he's actually read my book. As a movie maker, I love to be on the show. Why? Because he's actually seen my movie. This may seem normal, but it's actually not. This is a guy who does his homework, and he thinks about it, and he's one of the most intelligent guys on the radio. So support Point of View, support Kirby Anderson. He's the best.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Welcome back to Point of View. I'm Penna Dexter, and we are kind of continuing our push to ask you to join Truth Team 360, be part of the Point of View team. You can do it by going to pointofview.net or calling us at 347-5151. We would love to hear from you, and we really depend on our listeners to support us. Especially, we love it when folks join the Truth Team, and we can count on you for a monthly gift, whether it be $1 a day, $30 a month. That's how much it takes to join the Truth Team, and you can be part then of bringing these programs and these broadcasts to the country. And we've got stations all across the nation. People that don't have access to some of the big powerhouse stations, we've got shows that inform people of the truth of some of the current events and things that are swirling around us. And one of those events I was mentioning in the first segment of this hour, it was the Day of Silence, which is this Friday. And it's a day when students are silent at elementary, middle, and high schools in solidarity with LGBTQ students. And students are taught in school now that it's wrong to discriminate if two students come out as gay. Well, discriminate is defined as disapprove, not agree with, not affirm, and not celebrate. And so, that's what the kids in the schools are being asked to do. It's not just in the Day of Silence. It's throughout curriculum, and we'll talk about that with a guest later in the program. But now that is being expanded from gay and lesbian kids or people to the transgender. If a fellow student identifies as a female, a little boy, or the other way around, and then you have the boys identifying as girls, demanding access to the changing rooms and bathrooms. That agenda's in the schools now, too. So that's added to what was already there with regard to this Day of Silence. And then there's the idea that if you disagree, you're bullying, and that's going to be punished and prohibited. And so that's why I think you ought to check out with your school this week and find out if the Day of Silence is being promoted in the school, and then make a decision what you want to do about your child. If you have thoughts about this, what are you going to do? Do you have kids in the schools? Have you ever seen this day celebrated at your child's school? 800-351-1212. And then the other question we put on the table in light of the guests that didn't show today is how to have fun in parenting, how to make your parenting style fun. Are you always saying no? How can you say yes and still operate a home where your values are enforced and where your students are still towing the line? So if you have creative ideas about that, we'd love to hear from you. And there are a couple other stories out there that I just wanted to share with you. Since we're talking about children today on today's program, there is an article that I found in the Wall Street Journal that I thought was really interesting, and I'm trying to find it. Oh, here it is. It was in the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago. And, last week we spent the whole week talking about socialism, trying to sort of define socialism and see how it's sort of penetrating through our culture, but especially because so many candidates now actually define themselves as Democrat socialists. And so, it's kind of a cool agenda to some people, but it's not cool, ladies and gentlemen. It's caused tremendous suffering throughout the world in previous decades. But I just want to talk about one little part of this discussion, because a lot of folks say, no, we don't want Marxism, we don't want communism, we don't want this kind of socialism that you saw in Soviet Union or in Ceausescu's Romania or Pol Pot's Cambodia. We don't mean that. We don't mean what's going on in Venezuela right now. But what we do mean is sort of the Swedish, Norwegian, or even European welfare states. That's what we want. And, of course, we had a guest last week, Jay Richards, who argued and gave the evidence that Sweden is really not a socialist state. It's a free market economy. They just have a large welfare state. But here's something about this. It's written by Erica Commissar. She's been on the program. She's somewhat liberal, and she's a psychologist. But she's been writing some interesting pieces to help us to think about these issues. And she says there's a human cost of Sweden's welfare state. And she talks about one example where she had a friend in a public park and with a 2-year-old. And a group of women came up to her and berated her because this 2-year-old wasn't in daycare. And that's what happens in some of these states where the government is providing all things for all the kids. And so Erica Commissar says American liberals sometimes hold up Sweden as a model of the social order, equality of the sexes, and respect for parental responsibilities. The state offers excellent free or subsidized prenatal care. They offer 480 days of paid leave for parents, new parents or adoptive parents, and additional leave for moms who work in physically strenuous jobs. They also, if you're a parent of a newborn and beyond, you have the option to reduce your normal hours and, of course, your pay at the same time, up to 25% until your child turns 8 years old. A lot of us look at that and we think, especially if we were working during those early years, that would be wonderful. There's a price to pay, says Erica Commissar. She said all this assistance comes at a steep cost. The tax rate, personal income tax rate in Sweden is 61.85%. So it's the highest personal income tax rate in the world. That money pays for some of these things that I just mentioned. This is the kind of support, she says, that many American women would welcome. But it also comes with pressure on women to return to the workforce on the government schedule, not their own, and to also this daycare, the support of daycare, institutionalized daycare, which is the worst for children. They call it preschool, but at 2 years old or 3 years old, it's daycare. But the government promotes the belief that professional caregivers are better for children than their own mothers. So parents don't research that, don't know. So she goes back, Erica Commissar talks about her 32-year-old friend who said she was in the park with her 2-year-old son. She was surrounded by a group of women. They berated her for not having the boy in daycare because it was better for the child, they said. So it's just a very kind of interesting kind of peer pressure that you see in these kind of societies. Erica says Sweden's maternity policies may be good for economic growth because you got these women coming into the workforce. You got plenty of workers. And also it's good for egalitarian ideals, but not necessarily for the social and emotional health of children. Now, remember, the writer of this, Erica Commissar, is a psychologist, and she's liberal on many things. But she really, she's written a book about how newborns and small children need their moms, and they need them full time. 90%, she says, of Swedish children under 5 are in daycare. This likely contributes, she says, to mental health problems. In 2012, roughly 20% of Swedish adolescents reported at least 5 instances of self-harming behavior, and the teen suicide rate hit a 25-year high in 2013. Nearly 80% of Swedish mothers work, compared with around 70% in the U.S. And, if we expand, there's really many proposals by many of the Democrats, and I must say Republicans, because Ivanka Trump has an idea for paid family leave that her dad seems to have positively mentioned. So we've got to push for the same type of thing here in the U.S., and so it's something we have to think about, I think, here as a country. And, so as you think about the idea of socialism, and I wrote a commentary this week about, well, can we really say that our push to expand the welfare state is different than the kind of socialism that has destroyed so many lives throughout history? There are many similarities. And I think, so we always have to be not only the expense of it all, but just the harm that it does to a culture when the government does more and the private citizen has less freedom to make decisions for their own family. So that's part of the cost of socialism. And that was some of the things that we wanted to just kind of tell you are important to look at going forward. And we will be doing that here on Point of View. That's why it's important to join the Truth Team. And you'll hear about that more in the break, and we'll be right back.
This Easter, from 20th Century Fox and Franklin Entertainment comes Breakthrough, starring Chrissy Metz, based on a true story. When Joy Smith's son John falls through an icy Missouri lake, all hope seems lost. But a mother's belief in the power of prayer inspires her community to trust God to do the impossible.
Please, God, send your Holy Spirit to save my son.
Breakthrough, rated PG, parental guidance suggested. In theaters Wednesday, April 17th. Tickets and showtimes available at breakthroughmovie.com.
Ronald Reagan.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
What are you doing to pass on truth and freedom? As one step, have you joined Point of View Radio's Truth Team? If not, why not? Join today. Go to pointofview.net/team or call 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Penna Dexter.
And we've got the phones open. The questions on the table are, number one, the Day of Silence this Friday. It's a day where at elementary, middle, and high schools across the country, if GLSEN has anything to say about it, children will be quiet, be silent in solidarity with the LGBTQ kids in the school and across the nation. Is your school participating, or do you know if they are? You might want to find out. And do you have any experience with the Day of Silence in past years? 800-351-1212 is the number. That's one question on the table. I think another question, in light of the article that I just have been reading to you, it's from the Wall Street Journal. It's called The Human Cost of Sweden's Welfare State, and it's posted at pointofview.net, so you can read it. Because for Wall Street Journal, you have to have a subscription. But I have it up there. I have a subscription, and so I put this up. And, we've talked about the countries that people say is the good kind of socialism, the kind where it's just government funding of a lot of benefits for people and things that people like. And so the question is, and it's argued in Sweden that actually your kids are better off because you're getting the experts. You're getting a daycare that's well funded by the government, and I think you see this mindset in parents here in America where they think, well, do I even have the right to keep my child home? Shouldn't I have them in school where they'll learn more at 2 years old? Maybe they'll learn their colors or they'll start to learn their letters. And I'm thinking, I just remember my little kids asking me about the letters before I was even ready to teach them. I mean, children really, they don't have to be pushed into those things. I think you can do it way too early, and you can actually burn them out on some of the academic subjects if you start too early. But that's just my opinion. But I'd love your opinion on this issue. What about being home with your children? Is that important, or is it actually better to let the experts do it? And again, our number is 800-351-1212. And I want to just go back to the article, and again, it's posted at pointofview.net, The Human Cost of Sweden's Welfare State. As talking about how nearly 80% of Swedish mothers work, compared with about 70% in the U.S. And this country has worked hard to eliminate material poverty. And, of course, it's easier in a country that's more homogeneous as they are and smaller. But it's creating a country, says our author, Erica Commissar, whose children are suffering from emotional poverty. And it's not really helping many of these children to be in big daycare centers. They actually need their mothers. Erica Commissar, Dr. Commissar, says, I worry that the U.S. is heading in the same direction. And you've heard probably of Ivanka Trump's paid family leave agenda, which would actually, it's another benefit, another entitlement. And I've heard even Republicans and conservatives argue that it would be good because it gives women the freedom then to go into the workplace and to work. And that would be better for our economy and better for women's lives and all of that. We've heard all of these arguments. But in Sweden and in some quarters here, women are pressured to value career and professional achievement over family. And Americans have devalued parenting, especially motherhood. So we don't need the government encouraging that. Really what our kids need is moms at home. That's what Erica Commissar is saying. And I'd love to know what you think about that, about the whole idea of moms actually making a choice that costs a lot of money and a lot of status in your career. And it's interesting because Mandy Arioto, who is CEO of MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers, she has been asked many times as she speaks around the country for moms who have dreams of what they want to do in life, and they're having to put those on the shelf because they've got these little kids that take all their time, and they didn't even realize that was going to be the case when they tried to go on this track of raising kids and having a career. And she herself has done this. She's raised her kids while having a career. She's had to work. But she says nothing is more important than loving your people. And I'm finding that out even as a grandmother. Nothing is more important than taking care of the people in our lives. And then she says many of the mundane tasks of life will never be finished once and for all. We know that, too. We're never going to finish our to-do list. So, you have to figure out kind of how to love your people and get those tasks done. But when you're adding a whole high-powered career onto that, it's very hard. Impossible, I would say, for many people. So, again, I want to have a conversation. We've got some folks waiting to talk, and I just kind of want to set the tone here for the last half hour of this segment to talk about moms at home. It's a discussion that we don't have often here on Point of View, but I think a lot of us as Christians assume that that the plan where the mom is at home, at least in the early years with the child, is best for the child. It's ideal. It's not always practical. And so mothers in this country, when they answer surveys about what kind of childcare they prefer, if it's not them and they love the idea of working part-time so they can be home with their kids part-time, now there's a lot of at-home working done. But also, families and different choices with regard to daycare that are beyond the big government type of daycare, which Elizabeth Warren is proposing in her presidential campaign. So let's talk about that. And we are taking your calls here at 800-351-1212. Let's go to Pamela in Massachusetts, listening in on WSEW. Hi, Pamela. What are your thoughts?
Hi, I'm a public school teacher. I teach at the elementary level, and I'm the art teacher. So, unfortunately, I see 655 students a week, which is, first of all, wrong. When they put the preschool in my schedule, they did it just to have a way to show parents, look, if you come here and pay a tuition-based preschool, you'll get art and music and physical education, and the child can go to the library. It's too much. They don't even have an experience of being in their own childhood development, let alone being in a huge school building and trying to, even make sense of what's going on. And when they get to first grade or even kindergarten, and I see them again, I have comments from the children of, we've done this before. They get so much of the colors and alphabets and numbers in kindergarten, and just it's such redundancy that it's really a shame. We have also had groups popping up in our community where we need to teach kids how to go outside and play, because there are no more kids outdoors, running around forming social groups and learning how to negotiate, a team, or just playing a game outside and not having it regulated by someone. So what's going on is really, really very sad, and I think it's totally wrong.
Pamela, I mean, there's so many things I could pick up on from what you said, and I think I'll just go back to the very first one, all the students that you have coming through your classroom, and you probably have all the students for art, right, in the school?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now they're adding preschool. And the sad thing about it is almost by the time the child enters kindergarten or first grade, they're an old hand at school and they're a little bored.
Yes.
And so, what's the point? What's the point of putting them in so early? Because they're really not learning more.
Well, and I think it's sad because parents, have two-family income. I believe that they could supplement a different way with having them be socialized with more of a daycare setting, not a school setting where they can play and they can, find other ways to come about discovering, a color, or be more inquisitive with what comes along in their visual path, daily. But to put them in a program, first of all, it's not even mandated that they be in a program at that age, or even kindergarten for that matter. So something has to be done. Someone has to really figure out how to bring kids back to the stages of development and really understand that, pushing this down on them, they're growing up too fast. I even see the third graders now used to be pretty well behaved and not chatty and all that, and now they're more like a middle schooler where, developmentally that seems appropriate. They would start to know their self and have conversations and have things to offer, but it's just too much too soon, and it's too fast. It's the fast pace of everything. I call it a demon, because anything that's rushed or fast is a speed demon, and it doesn't do anything but just push them through. And there's just so many things that need to be really looked at. And
we're going to unpack this a little more after the break. Pamela, thank you for this insight from a professional. It means a lot. So we appreciate your call, and we will continue to take your calls here at Point of View.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
If I hear it from somewhere else, I don't consider it credible until I hear it from Point of View. There are so few people fighting on the front lines for our freedoms. I think Point of View certainly is one of those. And without ministries like Point of View, we really don't have much hope for the future of our children, our grandchildren. They just really help on a daily basis protect the freedoms that we enjoy today. I can't see a better way to invest in our future than to support Point of View.
Point of View is absolutely valuable to the listeners who want to hear the truth. Today, the media, you just cannot trust them, whether it's print or electronic media, and we depend on Point of View to deliver to us the truth. Without Point of View, I do not know where people would turn to get the message that they need to hear about truth in our culture today. Please, please consider supporting Point of View.
Point of View. Truth Team 360.
Welcome back to Point of View. We're talking about stay-at-home moms. Is it best to stay at home with your kids when they're little? Is it best to stay at home with your kids when they're a little bit older? Is it best to stay at home with your kids when they're middle school, high school? But especially, there's a push to get our kids into sort of government-funded daycare. This has always been a battle we've fought for many decades, and it's coming back now with the upcoming presidential race and many of the candidates, especially Elizabeth Warren, who is proposing expanded government-funded daycare. When you look at Head Start, which is the daycare program for kids that we've had around for a while, and you look at the results, they're pretty sad because, it's early school, and the conventional wisdom was that this would be better. The earlier you start learning things, the better. But it turns out that some of the things that kids might have learned early, it was evened out by the time they were in fourth grade, and the aggressive behavior was worse. So that's just Head Start, and we want to double down on that. And really, Elizabeth Warren's plan is not just for poor kids, it's for all kids. So what are your thoughts about stay-at-home moms? Is it worth the sacrifice if you've got a job and you're thinking about perhaps quitting and staying home with your kids, going part-time, working from home, all of those solutions? Let's go to Colleen in South Carolina. Colleen, thank you for calling in.
Thank you. I just wanted to first thank you for the encouragement that Point of View is to our family and just the stand for truth that you take. It's just, it's wonderful. I am a stay-at-home mom of 7. We homeschool, and I have a master's degree in civil engineering and was a professional engineer for several years before we had children. And I really think that the key is to get the gospel out and have people's lives changed by Christ and let Him change their hearts. The thought of staying home with my kids was never even a consideration. I was raised to, I was going to go to college, have a career. And the Lord just totally transformed the way that I thought. I was saved when I was in college, and the Lord just took over. And I'm able to stay home with my kids. I can't imagine sending them to early Head Start program. I've got 4 older ones that are 12 and up, and then I've got 3 that are in the car with me that are 5, and I've got twin 3-year-olds. And when I see those little guys out on the corner waiting for the school bus, it just breaks my heart. I really feel like parents are the best equipped to care for their children and train them. And our job as parents is to raise godly Christian children to become moral Christian adults. And I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to be able to stay home.
Wow, you're a mom after my own heart. Colleen, do you are your kids homeschooled? A lot of people with big families like that homeschool.
Yes, we do. I've got 2 that are in high school, 2 in middle school, 1 in kindergarten, and as I said, I've got 2 3-year-olds that are not yet schooled.
Well, fantastic. And do you ever miss going to the office?
Actually, no, I really don't. But I do think that staying home with the children is actually the hard road. It is. I can't imagine having a job and having to come home and still have family responsibilities. But staying home is trying and very difficult. And many days I fail, but I still feel in my failures that God has called us to train these kids and to raise these kids, and they're our responsibility. And we need to take that responsibility seriously and train them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord.
Wise words. Colleen, thank you so much for your call.
Thank you.
Let's go to Georgia and speak with Lisa. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for calling in.
Hi.
What's your story?
I left my job 25 years ago to become a stay-at-home mom, and I don't regret it one bit. Then a few years ago, I needed a job. And, of course, it was difficult to get back into the field that I had trained for and worked in. But I did find a job. I'm still working at that job. I work at a payroll company now. But those years with my kids are just irreplaceable. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I do think it was for the best for them. And,
were they already did you leave the job after they were already a few years old, or was it before? Was
Yes,
it right at the very beginning?
My oldest one was 2.5, and a middle child had just had her first birthday a week before I left my job.
So in a sense, it was a financial sacrifice.
Yes, it was, because I was making more than my husband at the time. But we never missed a meal. God has been so faithful and good to us, and my children had time with their grandparents and time with their cousins that they wouldn't have been able to enjoy otherwise. And I did homeschool them until they went into the high school grades. So it was a tough decision as far as financially what it did to us, but I don't regret it. And we lived very frugally, so we're doing fine.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you. And, you know, it is a faith walk. Sometimes you don't think you can afford it. Somehow God comes through. I know that was true in my own life. And so thank you. I will say, ladies and gentlemen, that in the next hour, we're going to have Elizabeth Johnston will join us, and she's the activist mom. She's got 10 children that she homeschools. And so Lisa giving us that testimony of homeschooling. And sometimes you can only homeschool part of the time. And there are some great schools out there, too. And if your child is in public school, it's better that you have plenty of time to kind of debrief and deprogram them if they are in the public schools. So we continue to take your calls. Let me take another quick one before the break, and then Elizabeth will join us. And if you're interested in this topic of schooling and kids and moms, you'll want to stay with us. Let's go to Kathy in California. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. I was just listening a few minutes ago when you were talking about, I think it was Ivanka Trump. I'm not sure who you said was trying to pass some
family leave, paid family leave.
Yeah, that's great. But I'm a grandma now. I'm raising my grandson. But I had 3 kids several years ago and stayed home with them. And I used to think, why is the government, kind of funding or giving tax breaks for moms that go back to work? Why aren't they supporting us moms that stay home?
Yeah.
Where are the tax funding and tax breaks for the stay-home moms? Especially with all of the statistics showing that, how good it is for the kids. But there is nothing like that, right?
No. Actually, I think lowering everybody's taxes is the answer there. I just get really concerned when the government tries to manipulate people's choices. And, we did fight back in the 90s for something for stay-at-home moms. And, that makes sense, but because I think it's really cheaper in a sense for the government to have more moms staying at home because of all the other programs. But it's just not a reality today. And I think really the best way is to just have a strong economy so that perhaps people could live on one income, or moms could work more part-time and pay attention to their kids. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
There is another factor that I was thinking, and I don't want to be, negative about.
We're just about on a break. So call me back in a half hour because we'll continue to talk about that. We'll be right back for Point of View.
It's amazing but true. When it comes to one of America's biggest household expenditures, healthcare, a lot of people think they've got no choice. People are used to thinking we have to do it this way, but they don't. Yes, you have the freedom to choose an alternative with your health care. It's MediShare, and it costs way less than the alternatives. The typical family saves $500 a month, not a year, a month. And if you're single, this can save you a lot too. And let's face it, a big reason MediShare is 400,000 people strong. It just works. They've shared over $3 billion in medical bills, so they can help share your needs too. Joining MediShare for so many people is one of those things that makes you say, why didn't I do this before? So yes, the time has come for something better. Look into joining MediShare and see why so many people are opting out of the old way and into the new. Why not look into this? Just call 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
It takes a team to win. Be part of Point of View's Truth Team and bring truth and healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team, pointofview.net/team, and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have.
You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kirby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of view, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Penna Dexter.
Well, we've had lots of calls here on the program about from moms who have made the choice to stay at home with their children, thinking that is the best for their children, and certainly even some experts. For instance, in the Wall Street Journal, Erica Commissar agrees with that and validates with a lot of research. But beyond staying at home and being the primary influence, being concerned about the other influences on kids is also very important. And that's what our next guest is all about and encourages others to be about. Her name is Elizabeth Johnston. She is the activist mommy, and she has a new book out, Not on My Watch, How to Win the Fight for Faith, Family, and Freedom. She's a homeschool mom of 10 kids from North Carolina. She's an activist vlogger, and she has got over 70 million video views on social media while speaking passionately on controversial issues. She's gaining a lot of attention, and rightly so. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you, and I'm so interested in hearing your story, especially how you began. What sparked you to think that, you needed to be, you have a lot of kids, so that keeps you busy, but what sparked your desire to go beyond that and become the activist mommy?
Well, we have always been active in pro-life ministry as a family. I've been married to a medical doctor for 20 years and have been a diaper bag carrying homeschool mom all of that time. That my family has been my focus. But there were two pivotal moments for me. One was the Kim Davis situation in Kentucky. Do you remember when she would not sign the marriage license? That was a real moment for me when I realized that that the natural family was greatly under attack, and our religious freedoms and ability to just act like Christians in our nation was under attack as she got shackled and taken off to jail for acting like a Christian.
She wasn't signing the same-sex marriage certificates, right?
That's correct. That's correct. She was the clerk there in that county in Kentucky. And then the other issue that really rocketed me out of my lazy boy was the transgender bathroom situation when Obama issued the transgender bathroom directive to the public schools. And I knew that grown men were going to be in the dressing rooms and locker rooms and shower rooms of our daughters. I no longer recognize my country. And I realized that we better get out of our easy chairs. We better get out of our church pews and get engaged in this culture war if we want our children and future grandchildren to live in a free country.
Well, you live in North Carolina, and that was really ground zero for the transgender bathroom issue. It came to a lot of people's attention. Another ground zero issue was Target, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and that was the first video I filmed was over the Target, and again, the Obama transgender bathroom issue, and the rest is history. I mean, lo and behold, 70 million video views later, there was a hunger in our culture for a bold and biblical response to these social and moral issues, and so that's what we've continued to do. I never intended on being a public figure, having a public platform, and now I've interviewed the vice president's wife and just been put in these crazy situations as again, just a very ordinary diaper bag carrying mother, homeschooling mother. And so my book, Not on My Watch, is filled with inspirational stories of how everyday, ordinary Americans like myself, moms, dads, grandparents, people that don't have fancy degrees and titles behind their names, we can make a huge difference if we'll push back against these radical cultural Marxists who are trying to change the fabric of our nation. We can make a difference. We just got to be willing to be a little hated and not be bullied by the left.
Elizabeth, back in my day, I've got grandchildren that are preschoolers, and this is where I got involved here in Texas when I had school-age kids, and we were upset because the schools assumed our kids were going to be sexually active. And they were demonstrating at that time how to put condoms on using bananas and other things. And so in my town of Plano, Texas, we fought to get it stopped. We got 3 school board members elected, and we got it stopped.
Awesome.
And then Planned Parenthood came in and defeated our school board members in the next election. And this is, this kind of pattern thing that happens, that the left comes in. But, I guess my question for you is, and another thing we did is we worked to defeat a new age kind of counseling program, and we weren't successful at that one. So, even if you are successful or you aren't, what was the matter? I mean, why cannot we amass more parental concern about this type of thing and get some of these things permanently erased?
Well, first of all, let me say you sound like a woman after my own heart, for sure. And that is an issue that I have been having to tackle over the last 2 years, which, I've only been doing this the last 2 years. This has all happened very fast, very organically, because there's a massive need in our culture for everyday moms and dads to rise up and take action and be a bold voice. Every day I get messages saying, thank you for being so bold. You have inspired me. I have found my voice. I have realized that I can speak truth on these issues. And yes, I'm going to get pushback. Yes, I'm going to be hated. But what people don't realize is that there are a lot of people that are admiring you silently, wishing they had your courage and your boldness that you're displaying on these issues. And oftentimes God will use you to inspire them. That's why I did Sex Ed Sit Out last year. I encouraged parents to pull their children out of school on April 23rd last year to protest pornographic, gender-bending sex education. I'm not an organization with money or funds, and let me tell you, it ended up being a global movement in 4 countries because one mom rose up and said, we cannot tolerate this. This is not what we send our kids to school for, to learn how to question their gender and to learn pornographic sex education. And so, again, my heart, my desire is to just inspire other people to take action. And the reason you're saying I've tried these things and sometimes we haven't been able to win is because God's people, the people that should be more vocal on these issues than anyone, the ones who should be so courageous because we get our courage from the Lord himself and from his Holy Spirit, we're sitting in our church pews, sitting on our hands, waiting for Jesus to come back and rescue us from everything. And we've been saying that for 50, 60 years now. And now our children and grandchildren are living in this crazy mess because we were just sitting and waiting for Jesus to come back. Had we been actively engaged in this war against our children, saying, no, not on my watch, enough is enough, you and I wouldn't be dealing with having to pass this on to our children and grandchildren, would we?
No, we would not, Elizabeth, and I think your point is well taken. We're coming up on a break, and folks, if you want to weigh in or ask Elizabeth a question or just talk about this issue of getting involved, the church, in a sense, I remember so many times when, yes, wonderful people would get involved in these causes. Other times, though, they'd say, why do you spend your time doing that? The Lord is coming back. We need to be bringing people to Christ. And, Elizabeth can elaborate on this. I think that her point is absolutely something Christians should be talking about. First of all, if you're a rapture person, you don't know the day or the time. So we need to occupy. And perhaps, it's a different theology is in play today. But we need to all be involved if we care about the future. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We've got more with Elizabeth Johnston right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
The former Attorney General Eric Holder started a conversation the other day on MSNBC when he was asked about President Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again." Holder responded with this question: exactly when do you think America was great? The implication was America has never been great in the past. Vice President Mike Pence decided to respond to the question by Eric Holder with 4 iconic pictures on Twitter. They were pictures of Washington crossing the Delaware River, Americans raising the American flag over Iwo Jima, Buzz Aldrin posing with the American flag on the moon, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. giving his famous speech in Washington. You might think that would have ended the discussion. Actually, it started another one about American history from a leftist perspective. Consider one of the many Twitter responses. When Washington crossed the Delaware, there was slavery. When the flag was raised at Iwo Jima, Japanese Americans were in internment camps. When King marched on Washington, black people could not vote. And when we landed on the moon, millions were dying in Vietnam. Perhaps this one response can help you see the leftist perspective on American history. No matter what good is done in the country, it is never enough. All of those statements are true, but does that invalidate the sacrifice and innovation that has made some of these iconic pictures so meaningful? One more point is worthy of mention. Few want to mention the political affiliation of those behind such evil. It was Democrats who put Japanese Americans in internment camps, prevented African Americans from voting, and who expanded the Vietnam War. The vice president tried to provide us with a history lesson and instead gave us an insight into the mindset of the left in America. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
From 20th Century Fox and Franklin Entertainment, Breakthrough, starring Chrissy Metz, based on a true story. Breakthrough, rated PG, in theaters Wednesday, April 17th. Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Hello, I'm Chuck Bentley, CEO of Crown Financial Ministries. I so appreciate the great work of Kirby Anderson and the Point of View team. Every day they step into the public arena to make a stand for truth by shedding biblical light on the issues that confront us all. Never backing away or compromising on the truth, they're making a difference for you, for me, and the next generation. It's important that we Christians put our money behind those causes that are having a meaningful impact. My wife and I personally support Point of View, and we encourage you to do the same.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
You can find out more about our guest, Elizabeth Johnston, by going to pointofview.net. You can see her beautiful picture and find out more about her book, and I recommend getting it, Not on My Watch. And while you're at pointofview.net, join the Truth Team. We need your help to keep going with this program that's been around for 45 years. And we're needed, as Elizabeth will tell you, we are facing issues that we could have never imagined 20 years ago. And I think I look at the second chapter of your book, Not on My Watch, Elizabeth, about gender insanity. I mean, this is one of the areas where they're really coming after our kids, aren't they?
Absolutely. We are now in a place where we have children being stolen from their parents by the state because the parents do not support their children ingesting non-FDA-approved drugs for so-called sex changes. Are we out of our minds in this nation?
I know.
What is going on? We have totally lost our way. This is an attack on our liberties. This is an attack on parental rights. This is one of the reasons why Back in 2017, I burned a copy of Teen Vogue magazine and filmed it and posted it, and it was viewed 15 million times because Teen Vogue, a fashion magazine that's supposed to be giving fashion tips to teenagers, was teaching our kids how to sodomize one another in a fashion magazine. We burned Teen Vogue, was viewed 15 million times, launched Operation Pull Teen Vogue, asking parents to please get Teen Vogue removed from the shelves of their libraries and stores. I was mocked ruthlessly, called every name you can imagine, a Nazi book burner. Terrible things I cannot say here were spoken about me because I did this. And 5 months later, Teen Vogue went out of print, and a publication which has been in print since I was a little girl. One person can make a huge difference. Are you willing to be hated to make that difference? That's what it takes. Jesus said, all those who live godly in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. If you're willing to suffer a little bit of persecution, you can have the joy on the other side of having made a huge impact in your culture and for your kids' future.
Elizabeth, I think something that you have that you are making great use of is just social media and technology, the ability to reach so many millions of people with these efforts, and you creatively are finding ways of getting attention, doing something outrageous. I applaud you for doing that because you don't have to have the infrastructure of an organization these days, as we did kind of back in 20 years ago when I was kind of beginning to get very concerned myself. Although for me, it did launch into becoming co-host here at Point of View back then. And, you know, we have radio. We have social media, we have Facebook, we have all of your vlogging that you do. So, I mean, more power to you. How do you manage, though, with 10 kids and homeschooling and doing that? You involve them?
Well, one day at a time, by the grace of God, let me tell you, and we do it as a team. But you're right, the social media is the Roman road of today. God has given us an amazing tool here, and yes, it can be used for evil, and it can be used for the kingdom of God. It's just amazing that I have been able to do all of this from the comfort of my home. I'm not kidding you. Most of my videos have been created in my 15-passenger van, you know, or in my backyard, or in my basement. And I have not had to leave my home. I've been able to be a stay-at-home homeschool mom and you know, make some serious dents in culture. And so I want to encourage your listeners to, whatever the issue is that God has placed on your heart, you know what it is. Is it the abortion issue? Is it the transgender bathroom issue? Is it the LGBT agenda? Whatever he has placed on your heart, just be obedient in that area. You'll be amazed at what God can do through you.
Elizabeth, 3 years ago, actually almost 4 now, the Obergefell decision came down, which brought us same-sex marriage across the country. States didn't even have the right to have their own opinion about marriage. And it's, you know, I think that things have accelerated since then. Not just I think, they have. And it's if this dam of protection that we had that at least was marriage, which was a good in the culture, was gone. Do you see that?
Absolutely, and we warned of that as the decision was about to be, you know, ruled on, and we were called all types of names, doomsdayers and whatnot. And we warned that this would lead to, you know, a slippery slope of you can marry anything, and that is exactly what has happened. We have people marrying, you know, inanimate objects, and now pedophilia is being actually, you know, normalized. Attempts have already begun this quickly to normalize pedophilia. And so any time when we move away from God's word and God's standard, this is the kind of judgment that you will see on the nation. This is why I have been pushing something I've organized called the Day of Mourning, in which we're going city by city, state by state, into these different areas where these egregious abortion laws are being attempted to be passed. And we are bringing a movement of mourning and repentance to these cities. If your viewers go to dayofmourning.org, they'll be able to see what we just did this last weekend in Richmond, Virginia, Governor Ralph Northam's state. Powerful time, powerful speakers, pastors up on stage on their hands and knees repenting over the sin of abortion. Medical community, dozens of medical professionals on the stage repenting over what they have done and not kept their oath to do no harm. The Day of Mourning is a powerful revival and repentance movement, because if we're going to see revival in our land, if we're going to have God heal our land, 2 Chronicles 7:14 style, it's going to take us repenting, turning from our wicked ways, and humbling ourselves.
You mentioned something in passing, and I noticed that you have also a chapter about how this is, there's sort of a Marxism underlying some of these agendas for our kids. How is this Marxist?
Oh, well, the radical Marxists, this is something that we've known about for many, many years. In fact, there was a statement read into Congress back in the 60s telling us, warning us about the Marxist takeover in our country, read into Congress. And there were these lists of like 40 goals. And one by one, the radical communist Marxists have been successful at taking over institutions such as the media, such as the public schools, the university systems, and even slipping their way into churches to change the fabric of our nation, to separate children from families, to destroy the natural family, to normalize sexual deviancy. All of these things have been very intentional, and I like to share that with people because I think it gives us hope when we see that there has been an intentional agenda, that this isn't just, inevitable. If there is an agenda underfoot that has been foisted upon us, and then there is also an ability that we have to push back against that and get victory over that. We have God on our side. We have the Holy Spirit on our side. We have something that the left doesn't have, and we're just not utilizing that. And so in my book, I go into a lot of detail on how we can win against the left and the radical Marxists who are trying to change our nation.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today. And more than that, I would say thank you for just taking the time, because you could just be very busy just focusing on your Christian life and your kids, and you're doing that. But you've gone beyond that, and I think you're a great encouragement to others. So thank you for doing that and for joining me today.
I appreciate that so much. God bless you.
God bless you. Elizabeth Johnston, again, you can see more about her at pointofview.net, the activist mommy. You can become an activist, and she's a great inspiration for that, and her book is not on my watch. And let's open up the phones for the next half hour. It's really yours. Open line, 800-351-1212. Question number one is the one we had on the table earlier in the program. I know a lot of you are unable to get through, but what about staying at home with your kids versus pursuing your career? Do you have to make a choice between these two? Are there some creative alternatives? A lot of people do have to work. Elizabeth has a husband who can take care of their family financially, and she can spend her time being an activist. And a lot of stay-at-home moms could take a little time out and do that, make a difference in the culture and the society. So are you doing that? I want to hear your personal stories. Are you a stay-at-home mom? Do you have a story? Did you make a choice? Did you sacrifice financially? And what are you doing to change the culture for your kids? We'd love to hear from you, 800-351-1212. Also during the break, one way you can really help the culture is to keep Point of View broadcasting. Go to pointofview.net and join the Truth Team.
Question, do you have a health insurance plan you are not happy with? Well, Bethany and Jason thought they were stuck. Their plan just kept getting more expensive, and Bethany's favorite doctor didn't even take that plan anymore. And then some friends at church told them about MediShare.
With our previous insurance, we were paying $1,200 a month. With MediShare, we now pay around $600 a month.
Yes, they're paying $600 less per month, and that's a pretty typical savings with MediShare. And they actually like MediShare more.
I was able to go back to my original doctor that I absolutely loved, and it's just been an absolutely beautiful thing being a part of MediShare.
Yeah, so they pay a lot less, and they like it more. No wonder MediShare is growing so fast. Find out more. They're super easy to talk to. All you have to do is call 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
It takes a team to win. Be part of Point of View's Truth Team and bring truth and healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team, pointofview.net/team, and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Penna Dexter.
Our thanks to Elizabeth Johnston, the activist mommy, and she has been talking about the agenda of the left as it relates to our children. And there's so many things that, in a sense, we need to protect them from. And, you know, a lot of times you see it in the schools. Well, one of the things she mentioned was the Obama bathroom policies that were being forced on the schools. It was a directive that President Obama issued, and basically saying the schools had to open up bathrooms so that if you identified as a girl, even if it was a boy, he could use the bathroom. It's not safe. There was privacy considerations. And it certainly ignores science and biology. And that was pulled back under President Trump. But now there's this effort in Congress to try to bring that back legislatively through the Equality Act, which was debated actually last week in a committee. And Nancy Pelosi's pushing this. There's a piece in the Daily Signal, and they're calling it the Equality Act, and they're trying to equate it to the civil rights pushes. And trying to use this blueprint that helped our nation desegregate schools to manipulate school children to carry water for the LGBT agenda. And this is whether their parents like it or not. And we mentioned earlier in the program the Day of Silence, where kids are going to be this Friday on the 12th in all levels of school, from elementary on through high school, to be silent on Friday in solidarity with LGBT students. And so this is just being pushed, and through curriculum, and Elizabeth talked about the sex ed curriculum, and it's really throughout. And this would be mandated through this Equality Act. The folks that are pushing this claim that the LGBT identifying students are treated unequally in schools, not like during the civil rights years when they're forced to sit in different areas, but because they have to use different bathrooms or locker rooms, or they can't be on the same teams as the opposite sex. So this is, it's just a false equivalency and a false equality that they're promoting. But there's this bill, H.R. 5, out there. And, I don't think it may be passed through the House, who knows, but it won't pass the Senate. And I doubt the president would sign something like this. But still, it's a push, and it's getting hearings in Senate committees. And Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, really supports it and is pushing it. And certainly the idea in this is not only pushing LGBT themes in sex ed, but also throughout the curriculum. We've heard this before, and it's certainly happening. For instance, in New Jersey, there's this new LGBT curriculum policy where it's throughout literature, history, and other classes, and even questioning U.S. presidents. Could this one who wasn't married be possibly gay? This type of thing. And although this won't become law this time, probably because our Senate will be protective, you know that this kind of agenda is out there. So if you have comments on this, give us a call, 800-351-1212. Also, the question on the table certainly is stay-at-home parenting. Is this, it seems like our callers are very supportive of just full-time dropping your job, even if you're an engineer, as one of our callers was, and staying at home and focusing on your kids. And, the financial sacrifice is worth it. It's better for your kids. It's better for you. Sometimes you're not divided. So give us your stories. We'd love to hear from you. 800-351-1212. Let's go to the state of Georgia, where Lisa is waiting. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your program.
You're welcome. What's your story?
Well, I worked until after I got married, and then soon after we married, I quit my job. It wasn't kind of planned. The business closed, and I just happened to be pregnant, and God just started orchestrating our lives differently than what we had planned. I never knew I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, even though I had a desire, but I definitely
You never
had no
think you
clue.
could do it, do you? It's hard to imagine these days only one income.
Even the first 4 years has been amazingly stressful and things like that, but it's been God has brought me so closer to Him, and I just know the sacrifice it's a God thing, and it's a good thing.
Lisa, thank you for that.
It's definitely been worth it. It's been worth it.
So your oldest child is 4?
No, I said 4 years, but my oldest child is 10. I can't even keep up with how many years we've homeschooled, but my children, my youngest is 8, my oldest is 10, and we did let them go to preschool. Just that seemed to work pretty good, but it was just till 12 in the afternoon, and then they were back home. So it was just a good little social hour, couple hours.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to totally demean preschool in speaking about early childhood education, but I think you do have to be careful of the programs you pick.
Right. And I'm not familiar with all the programs, since I'm homeschooling.
Yeah.
But so I'm happy you're educating us on that because I was unaware.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your call and certainly your encouragement to homeschool. And that seems to work for so many families, especially the mom. And this happened to me back in, 100 years ago, that, it was very expensive to put your child in a private Christian school. And there are so many wonderful ones. And so homeschooling was a really good answer because, you probably spent, full-time working. And so you could turn those energies and attentions and creativities toward educating the children in the home. And your children benefit.
And also, I feel like they have grown so much as far as their learning has been so much better than what they could have got in a school setting. And that's been mind-boggling to me as well. I had no idea that they could learn so much being at home, even to the point where I just get word like an hour before they're going to have a march. And next thing I know, we're in the car and we're going to March for Life for unborn babies.
Many opportunities that homeschooling affords to do some things like that and change your schedule and be flexible. And I love that. Lisa, thank you for your call.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing that. And let's go now to Charlotte in the state of Texas. Hi, Charlotte. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to address a statement that you made about sometimes mothers couldn't stay at home when they are single. I was raised by a single mom. It was not her choice. My father died when I was 8 and my brother was 13. And she stayed at home, raised our food, took in ironing and sewing, and we just did without the frou-frou stuff. The 25-cent malts on Friday nights just didn't happen.
Wow.
And it was hard at the time, but I look back and my mother gave me so much more than so many children have today because she knew my dad's greatest desire was for her to be at home with us. And she honored that, and the Lord provided beautifully. I followed in her footsteps. We raised 2 girls. I homeschooled for 16 years. And we didn't have 2 incomes, but my girls are both cum laude and summa cum laude graduates with no college debt. God will provide a way if mothers will invest in their children and take the time. It's not the things that children want. It's the parents that they want these days.
Yeah, they might not be able to articulate that, but that's their deepest need.
It is, and I just wanted to address the fact that a single mother can stay at home with her children. It's difficult, but she had a little pad that she kept every penny that was spent, even the 2 for a penny bubble gum back in those days before dirt. And she just absolutely, she knew where it all went, and she could stretch it, and the Lord provided. So I'd like to encourage moms to do that.
Thank you, Charlotte. I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, we do continue to take your calls on this issue. We've got people calling in wanting to give their stories. And I do want to add that, all these moms that have called in and they've made these decisions to stay at home. And sometimes there is a way to still earn an income. We have technology. Elizabeth Johnston, she's not earning an income, but she's being an activist. And there is technology and telecommuting and, flexibility sometimes that women can negotiate with employers if you do have to work. I just don't. I think that the faith walk is important, and sometimes we don't have enough faith to step out and just completely let the income go. Sometimes we just can't. So it's a reality in some lives, And I think when our children see us working and understand that we have to earn a living, there's some lessons there too. But the hours that you can spend at home more than, just at night after a full-time day when you're so exhausted from your job and still thinking about it because it's highly pressured, those are the things that are, they're very difficult. And, the feminists who wanted that for us and wanted us to have opportunities for someone else to take care of our kids, they didn't really want the best thing for our kids. So we want to hear your stories and continue to take those calls at 800-351-1212. During the break, check out pointofview.net. We'll be back.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
The things that catch my attention are the abortion issue, and it's so important for people to understand the value of life. And to me, that is number one in our lives. And the shows that I've heard on that have impacted. It just gives me kind of a different venue to be able to explain things differently to people. And I have kept in touch with the ministry, and I do donate each month because I feel like it's an important way for people to understand the worldview and that Christ taught. And we have just tried very hard to instill that in our children. Thank you so much for your service, guys, because you do have one.
Point of View, Truth Team 360.
Be part of the Truth Team. Go to pointofview.net or give us a call at 800-351-1212. It's an easy way to make a difference in this culture. And we very much appreciate and need those who join with us on a monthly basis to keep this broadcast going and growing. Let's go back to the phones. We are talking about our children and the need for parents to pay attention to them, the time that's necessary, the sacrifices that are made by moms to stay home, and not only moms, but also dads. We've got a dad calling in. Raphael is in Texas. Hi, Raphael. Thanks for calling.
Hi, thank you.
What's your story?
So, my wife and I have been praying and discussing about homeschooling our kids. I have been, to the point of finishing my terminal degree, but she makes, especially in the location that we live, 3-4 times more than I do.
So you're going to school and getting a degree?
No, I've already completed my degree. But because of the focus of my degree, and then the location I'm in, my choices are limited. But since she already has, she's tenured in her field, or vested. I'm not tenured, but vested. She doesn't have anywhere close to the education that I have, but she's making so much more, and me being the man and wanting to provide for the family and keeping and maintaining that role, it's hard for me to not, want to maintain that role and then give that up to my wife. And I don't think it's a pride thing. I believe it's something that's built into us as men to support and provide for our family. So I just curious if I could get a little maybe clarification or support on that. I'm not sure.
Well, first of all, I'd love to, if anybody is listening and is in that situation or has an opinion on that, give us a call, 800-351-1212. My opinion is that I think that you staying home with your kids and homeschooling, if you feel that, you're equipped to do it. I mean, everybody's equipped to do it. You have to put in time, energy, and organization to do it. And so, yes, especially for a time, I do understand that you want to pursue your career and your calling, the things you've been educated for. And could you possibly find time in your schedule to be looking and maybe working in that part-time and still do the homeschooling part? Can you guys share the homeschooling? Can you do something? Because I hate to say throw that out for the rest of your children's childhood, but I think it's wonderful to have a dad homeschooling. And I know a lot of homeschooling families where the dad takes certain subjects and the mom takes others. I don't know how old your kids are. Are they young?
So I have ranging from 3 all the way to 10.
Okay. Yeah, so they're very hands-on still. They're pretty young. And so, it takes a lot, and it probably takes pretty much full time to take care of all that. And I would say there's nothing wrong with it at all. In fact, I think having the male influence doing that is going to be great for your kids. But I also think that, you want to make sure that, in the long run, do you want to reverse that situation or do you want to share it? Can you possibly figure out ways for you both to take that responsibility? That would be my suggestion.
Right, exactly. And we've thought about that, like I said, because of my focus or my degree, I'm kind of limited as to where I...
What's your degree in?
It's in bioinformatics.
Okay. And can you earn big money later on that if you
I can earn big money on it now, just, having to go into, either to a large city to be able to do that. As a matter of fact, I left a position that I was offered as a contractor to work for a very high salary, but because my wife was offered even more money than I was going to make at the time, we decided to stay where we were. I mean, obviously we had our roots here and where we live, and so we decided to do that, thinking that I could find a job similar to what I had here, because the Army is everywhere. So, but unfortunately, they didn't have the same type of resources in Texas, or at least in where I live. So I had to go into a teaching position, which is nowhere close to her.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, I think there are seasons in life, and I think for a season for you to homeschool your kids would be awesome. It'd be great for them. And then, maybe you two can figure out ways for you to begin, growing that career. I think you'll be frustrated if you don't do that eventually. But I don't know you that well, but that's what, that's just me knowing family dynamics sometimes.
Well, thank you very much for the input. I appreciate it.
Okay, Raphael, thank you so much for calling. If anybody else has a thought on that, give us a call or experience in that type of an arrangement. Let's go to Brian in Georgia. Hi, Brian. Thanks for calling.
How are you doing today, ma'am?
Great. How are you? This has got to be short because we only have a couple minutes.
Well, I wanted just to praise all the mothers that stay home and take their kids out of school and put them into the homeschool. My wife actually does a Becca, and we pulled our eldest out because they refused to hold her back because she was one of those young birthdays. She's always either the youngest of class or the oldest of class. But we pulled her out. She went from a C- student to an A+ student. It went so well that we pulled my son out too. And with the Becca, we were able to take them to anywhere we would think of, state park, and do field trips. And they, in our homeschool program, they were able to have a Bible class every day, an hour dedicated to the Lord. And I just think that is the most pivotal thing to develop your child's love for the Lord. And there's plenty of social programs that you can do after school. You can go to Awanas, RAs, any kind of activity with your church. And I just want to tell all the women who think they have to work, you don't.
All right.
Your husband can take care of it. I do. It's a stretch. And it's hard work. I work about 60 hours a week, but I do it for my children because it is better for them to have that time with their mother, their time with me, and time at home to develop that better sense of themselves. And if they want to go to school, I suggest let them go to school, 11th and 12th grade. By then, more likely your child will be in college prep and be joint enrolled. They don't even have to go to college if they want to.
Yeah, a lot of parents find that it's almost time for college at about 16 or 17. Homeschooling is very efficient, and you don't have to spend as much time during the day in school as kids do who are actually at school because it's your child. You can focus everything on their learning, what they need. Some things are going to get quicker, and you can focus on the things they don't. So there are a lot of efficiencies in homeschooling, and the spiritual formation. It's unprecedented. You can't find it in any school anywhere better than at home. So thank you everybody for calling in today and weighing in. It was really fun. Go to the website pointofview.net. The Truth Team push is still on, so we hope you'll participate and see you tomorrow.
It's amazing but true. When it comes to one of America's biggest household expenditures, healthcare, a lot of people think they've got no choice. People are used to thinking we have to do it this way, but they don't. Yes, you have the freedom to choose an alternative with your health care. It's MediShare, and it costs way less than the alternatives. The typical family saves $500 a month, not a year, a month. And if you're single, this can save you a lot too. And let's face it, a big reason MediShare is 400,000 people strong, it just works. They've shared over $3 billion in medical bills, so they can help share your needs too. Joining MediShare for so many people is one of those things that makes you say, why didn't I do this before? So yes, the time has come for something better. Look into joining MediShare and see why so many people are opting out of the old way and into the new. Why not look into this? Just call 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
It takes a team to win. Be part of Point of View's Truth Team and bring truth and healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team, pointofview.net/team, and 800-347-5151. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.